to a little bit closer to the ground. What is it about what Rwanda has accomplished economically over the last 23, 24 years that can be a model for other countries in Africa? If it was a Harvard Business School study, what would you say? Here are the main points that we adhered to and accomplished, and that is what helped change the economy. And finally, because I think it's my last question before going out here, what role did foreign aid play in all of that?
Well, maybe let me start with the last one. Foreign aid played a big role in the development of our country. And in fact, we tried to engage the aid donors to modify either how they understand aid and, more importantly, the use of it. Because we tried to engage them on the basis that we, the people of Rwanda, should be given some space to decide on how and where to invest these resources they give us, rather than them bringing the money and deciding where they put it and how they deploy it, and in the end they are not bothered about the outcome. So we had a long discussion over this, and fortunately some of them agreed with us, and we even, to make them comfortable, we decided that we could actually have an agreement, even to monitor what happens with the use of aid, and also to measure the outcomes. But we wanted Rwanda to remain in the driving seat, because at the end of the day, they give us aid wanting to improve our lives, and it is including how to manage our affairs. This is, we think, is part, we always thought it was part of it. And we raised these issues with it. And so aid worked very well for us. Second, and this economic progress we witnessed in Rwanda, by the way, is also linked to some of the political issues that we are discussing, we are talking about. Because anyone asking questions about democracy or about freedoms or about this and the many criticisms you referred to that we have come under, which, well, I think maybe they served to improve us and for us to do things better and move on. If you look at how invested, we had, first of all, a vision for the country that would span 20 years, from 2000 to 2020. And top of that was how we were going to invest in our people. Education, health, food security, and so on. That we spelled it out, and it was clear and even sold to the donors. Number two, governance. How are we going to govern ourselves? Based on involvement of everyone, men, women, all those who have played their part. Three, infrastructure. Four, development of the private sector, and so on and so forth. Includes regional integration and how we work with others, and with all kinds of implications of enlarging, expanding markets and reaching out and so on and so forth. And I want to state here, I'm not going to say we did anything so that we may become a model for others to follow or anything. No, we were really focused on how to improve ourselves and how we can get our country from where it has been at very low base on everything, and take the people of Rwanda where they deserve to be. This is what we concentrated on. And so we were single-minded in terms of where we are coming from, what we need to do, for ourselves and focus on the results, not getting lost in the processes, but getting the results of improving our people's lives, reduction of poverty, and so on and so forth. So in the last 15 years, we've seen our economy grow between 7 and 8% every year. Mm-hmm. Now, that also meant inclusive growth, because we are mindful of the fact that this growth shouldn't just be impressive in terms of numbers, but it really needs to have impact. We need to measure it, we need to see it. And what has been measured in the last 15 years in those areas by people, either the World Bank, Gallup poll, it's about World Economic Forum, is, can name 10 or more of them. They've been on the ground, they've worked with us, they've seen, they've asked Rwandans, they've been anywhere they wanted. They can attest to this fact that good progress has been made, whether it is women empowerment and involvement, it is decision making, it's how many children go to school. We have the highest enrollment rate of primary and secondary school in sub-Saharan Africa. Mm-hmm. Yes. We have health insurance that covers 87% of our population. We have food self-sufficiency. We have, we can talk about doing business, how it is easy. You come to Rwanda, you register a company in 6 hours. It used to take 2 months. We can go on and on and on. So the kinds of infrastructure we have developed, government and the private sector, information and communication technologies, putting in the hands of Rwandans means of communication and of information to be informed. Now, if you do this, at the same time, you say people are not free. I can't be giving you tools to make yourself free, and then you say, it doesn't make sense. Mm. So these are things we've tried to do in the last 23 years, and by the taking the country from almost total destruction. For those who were in Rwanda in 1994, mm-hmm. they know what they found. Yes. Indeed. Bodies in all towns of our country, corpses all over the place. Everything was dead. It's the people, it's the infrastructure, it's everything. So where we are today, I think we can afford to absorb any prejudice.
So I'd like to open it up now to questions. We have about 25 minutes. And again, wait for a microphone. This is on the record. And this gentleman in the dark blue shirt here who had his hand up first.
Sometimes it works. Thank you, Jeff Laurenti. Mr. President, you've just described the successes in a small, compact, landlocked, densely populated country. Right next door, you have a huge, sprawling, minerals-rich country traveling under the name of the Democratic Republic of the Congo that has had a very hard time in being able to establish either political or economic success. Rwanda had some role in bringing the Kabilas to power, and that hasn't really turned out all that well. And the United Nations has been running for 15-some years on yet another giant peacekeeping operation there at great expense that seems to have no light at the end of the tunnel. What do you think accounts for Congo's inability to get on track politically and economically? Is this whole UN peacekeeping operation kind of a fool's errand that can never put this Humpty Dumpty back together? And what do you see as the path that the Congolese can realistically hope to take to be able to make something of that vast, sprawling country?
Well, I'm First of all, what has prevented the Congo to make a difference for themselves is between Congo itself and the international community that never learns lessons, and just whatever they got involved in or with in the Congo was to mess it up. I tell you, and what you started by saying, when, for example, we had responsibility in Congo, at some point, even what you said, enabling those who came to power with that, it wasn't really an international mission we had in favor of Congo. We're not doing them any favors. It was because we wanted to address our own problem that was originating from or based in Congo. That was, one can look at it like that. But something else you said that is important. If you look at how many billions of dollars that have been spent in the Congo by the international community through the UN, and for how long, and no result to show for it, then it just can't be the Congo that is the problem. It's also those who tried to associate with the Congo that in one form or another they are either created or are part of the problem. We used to ask for, in the last 10, 15 years, you say, okay, you have 20,000 troops in the Congo. You've so far spent billions there. Do you ever take stock of what you are really involved in? What is it you are doing? What are you getting out of it? How are you impacting the people of this country where you are involved and you are said to be trying to help? In fact, one time we used to argue with the UN and others and say, if you spent half of that money but on assisting Congolese themselves, you probably have a better chance of improving the situation, instead of spending it on the peacekeepers who. So, and just I wanted to end by saying, even if theoretically I would have some ideas about what is the problem and how to do it, I don't feel it is my place, my role to be lecturing people on issues to do with the Congo. If it is my country, I will tell you whatever you want to say. But with others, I want to leave it to them.
Although you will become in January the head of the African Union for the next year as well. More questions. Let's try this side of the room, the gentleman in the back there in the green shirt.
Thank you. James Heimowitz. I'm the president of China Institute here in New York. And therefore, I'm curious about your views about China in Africa. China's role has been broad, it's been deep, and I'm wondering about your thoughts about the positive and negative sides of that recent interest.
Right. That's true. There are many things to say about that. Again, I would not so much be interested, I wouldn't be interested in talking about China or others. I'm more interested in talking about ourselves. We the Africans, we the Rwandese. Because if you're not sure of what you really want for yourself and how to articulate that and how to design how you go about different things, I tell you, let's not blame China alone. Anyone else will come and just help himself with whatever they want and leave you lost in your own mess. So the problem is, can Africa, can Rwanda raise ourselves to a level where if we are engaging partners, whether bilaterally or regionally or as a continent, can we have some fair demands about what we expect of this relationship or interaction, and bear in mind what others must get out of it? So, unfortunately, it doesn't happen like that. You will find most of our countries are not ready. And maybe don't even make much effort to be assisted to be ready, to be able to articulate what we want in our relationships with other people. We are comfortable with the earlier sort of relationships we are talking about, where people just come and tell us what to do, whether it is good for us or not, and later on do whatever they want. I think the problem lies there with China or with any other partners.
Actually, one of the first meetings I had at the State Department was with an African foreign minister, not from Rwanda. And at the end of the meeting, he said, "You Americans lecture me about transparency, and the Chinese come and build me a superhighway." The young woman right there.
I didn't want to say that.
Graciana del Castillo from the Ralph Bunche Institute. I was at the Secretary General's office. I was a senior economist during the genocide, so I learned of that very closely. Since then, I've been working on war-torn countries, and as an economist, the only success story I can think of is Rwanda. And I think Richard asked you two very important questions. One, on what did you do on the economic side, and the other one on aid. I just published a book where I show that of the 21 UN-led or US-led operations, 57% returned to war in the first 10 years, and most of them ended up aid-dependent. And that's another big achievement in Rwanda, where aid has been decreasing since '94. You mentioned the things you did on human development, infrastructure, and all that. I compare Rwanda with Afghanistan because they are both landlocked and they had the same income per capita when they started and all that. And the difference is dramatic. And I think one of the things that you didn't mention, but it's a very good example for other countries in this situation, is that 75–80% of the population lived in rural areas. And one of the first things you did was to improve subsistence agriculture so people could have a peace dividend in terms of better lives and livelihoods. And that worked very well. Even the IMF complimented it because it decreased poverty. Even though poverty is still high, it decreased poverty, and that was very important for the Rwandan economy.
Well,
so I brought you a book where I mentioned Rwanda.
Thank you, and
so I'll give it to you after the...
Thank you for adding the very impressive points about that. Thank you. I appreciate it. Right. Yeah.
The gentleman there with holding the piece of paper.
Thank you very much. My name is Mahesh Kotecha. I run a small financial advisory firm, but I'm from Uganda, neighbor of yours. And you have truly achieved a remarkable story in Rwanda. I'd like to pick up on 2 points that you mentioned. One is infrastructure, and the other is the regional collaboration you used some term for about, and you're going to be at the AU. Could you tell us about the vision that you have for the East African community, for the COMESA, for the SADC? They are trying to do things together, for the whole issue of integration in Africa, because there is such a degree of fragmentation that international investors who are looking to come in, they get confused. How do they know? It's hard to get to know one country, let alone 54. So could you talk a little bit about integration in East Africa and then beyond? By the way, I'm on the advisory board of East African Development Bank as a disclosure.
Okay. Well, integration, regional integration has been the way to go, much as more has been said than what has been done. That's another problem we have to overcome. But I think the benefits of integration are very obvious to many. Even those who don't practice what needs to be practiced already know. They have the knowledge, they know the importance of it, but somehow politics of some kind will step in and people end up not doing what they actually ought to have done. So we started with the East African community, which now has 6, I think, or 7 partner states. And we have insisted. If you look at what we lose in not emphasizing intra-African trade, which regional integration would easily facilitate, is huge. The intra-African trade that just is less than a fifth of what it should be is really, and it would give us, if we unlocked that, it would give us more than we are getting from anywhere, whether through aid or by Chinese or by others. So we try to emphasize this and encourage even integrating. We have, for example, a master plan for infrastructure as for the region, for these countries, where it is the railways, roads, the energy, and so on, as a catalyst of other forms of integration. We also insist on freedom of movement of people across the regions, and other forms of integration. For example, we started with the customs union, then the common market, then people are talking about, there's discussion about monetary union, then when people are saying, no, we can actually form this into one country. 6 countries can turn into one country, political federation. So the fact that people are entertaining this kind of discussion and later on doing some things about certain things that can happen, I think it is already demonstrating the understanding of that importance, but we just need to accelerate things so they happen faster.
Okay, back to this side. You've been waiting.
Excellency, my name is Roland Paul. I'm a lawyer. I've been in the U.S. government a couple of times. You have quite properly referred several times in your remarks to the sad events of 1994 in your country. I'd like to ask you one specific aspect of that. I'm told by several well-informed or reasonably well-informed American observers that many people's lives would have been saved if the United States had sent a force of as small as 1 battalion of American troops to Rwanda. That's 700 soldiers, as you know. Do you agree with that?
It's an old story. I think many people agree with that. Maybe even if people had done simpler things than that, could have happened. If people had even with the threat of,
Something smaller than that even would have been. Oh.
it could have happened. But the fact was nobody, part of it was, for example, the government at the time used the radios communicating to the general public, telling them how to kill, who to go and kill, and it went on for weeks and months, and we were telling, so you see, this radio Until at some point, those of us who were involved in the war decided, to use some crude methods to take them out. But there were better technologies you could easily have. But I understand there was an argument. One, I think there was freedom of speech. Secondly, it was too expensive because it was going to cost, I think, $200,000. So 1 million Rwandese are not really worth $200,000, if I may be sarcastic for that. So I think you will know the answer.
The gentleman right here.
I'm curious, Rwanda, for all of its progress, is still somewhat dependent on foreign aid to balance its budget and so forth. If you could imagine a day when Rwanda no longer is dependent upon foreign aid, what will Rwanda have to look like? What will have to happen in order for Rwanda to reach that? What will need to be different in Rwanda to get to that point?
Well, I think we have many countries that are not dependent on aid. So we would look like those countries.
Okay, we have only 3 or 4 minutes left. So if we do 2 quick questions, how about that? The gentleman in the bow tie.
Your Excellency, I've served in Rwanda since '99, but as a whole family since 2003. And in my time there, I often was frustrated because I couldn't get people to raise hands and say, this is our decision here, and other people raising the side, and the majority would win. People always would say, Doctor, slow down, let's talk some more. And meetings went very long, but a consensus was achieved at the end. And I'm wondering if this is a better explanation for the 98% than many others. If you would agree with that, I think also people look back at '94 and they say, this many people saying yes, this many people saying no, that actually can turn us backwards toward ethnic division. And I'm wondering if the 98% is really a manifestation of the culture as a whole doing elections in the same way that all decisions are made, which is usually by people coming together at one accord.
I'm not sure. Huh?
I think it's about consensus, maybe.
It's about consensus, but it's about many things. It's not one explanation. There is something else. In fact, we have other political groups operating in Rwanda. But the problem they face, I really sympathize with them. The things people would run, politics on to deliver something, to deliver what is not being delivered, to introduce something that is new. They find all these things are being done, and the people themselves are the ones doing that, and they know it is. So you can't come and say, I'll give you this, when they are already, either they are having it or they're in the process of achieving it because they are doing it themselves, unless you tell them lies, which would only work for a short time, but they will get to know that you are telling them lies. So they have that problem. And also that history, the history, that affected, of course, produced the victims, but has perpetrators. We have created a situation where the victims and the perpetrators have come together and have been soul-searching among themselves to say, what is it that went wrong? Why did it go wrong? And then they formulate what they need to do to actually overcome that past together. That has been happening. In fact, that's why even the reconciliation process has taken place beyond even our own expectation. So, and they stick together on this, and it's like No, if anything came from outside and said, no, do this, they say, no, 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 no. For you are taking us back. Yes, we have found an answer within us and among us, and this is where we're going to stay. It's very interesting. There are many things. I think those who study these societies, you're welcome. There are more things you can discover in that place. Something else. This externalization of our politics in Africa and in Rwanda. You know, the moment somebody from outside says, no, 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 this Kagame must go, and they don't know they are making a big mistake. These Rwandans say, oh, no, they actually like him even more. To defy these fellows who think they can do anything or everything that people
We know that sentiment here in this country as well. So we have time for one short question and one short answer. The young lady back there.
You've spoken a lot about democracy, and I would just like to point to the accusations of human rights abuses in terms of the elimination of your political opponents or the oppression of the press, and I would just like to hear your comments towards that.
No, I would like to hear your comments because for me, it's like, you know, it's always difficult to accuse me of anything and then say, prove yourself innocent. I think I want to turn it to you and say, prove me guilty. That's where the problem lies. You know, the press or human rights groups, or what they say about me personally or about Rwanda, when you are in Rwanda and are dealing with these decent human beings also in Rwanda, and they tell you their own stories, you won't trace even 0.001% of what they're talking about. The real life there is completely different from what the young girl is talking about. Absolutely different. But people will stay here, will be here in the US and wherever, and they've never even been to Rwanda, they've never met Rwandans. The real Rwandans, they are there. Rwandans are there. The real people of Rwanda who are no different from you, what you aspire to be, to have, to do, they are no different. But it's as if Rwandans, Rwanda is treated like a botanical garden where you just go and water flowers and, you know, no, human beings like anyone in this room. Absolutely. So these so-called human, don't know what. I tell you, half of my life, I've been living in the trenches, not sure of living to the next day. I didn't fight to be the president of my country. Never. It came by accident, I think. So I was fighting for my own rights, which anyone in any human rights organization could not give me. And even now cannot give me or cannot give Rwandans. So it's cynical and absurd that anyone would just be there talking about violations, you know, me as the leader of my own people to be accused of violating their rights. It's just an absurd insult. But my answer is simple, is to do my best to serve my people the best way they can be served. That is the answer.
That's a great last word. Thank you. President Paul Kagame of Rwanda.